Hi all. So, solving equations, that was the whole point of factorising, so let's get to it. Here I've just put the questions that we've gone through in class, or that you've watched in the videos, that we can now solve for and find x because we've factorised them using all the different methods that we've talked about. And so we can solve these equations using the null factor law. So I'm just going to go through them one at a time. You squash them into that graph pad, otherwise you're going to run out of room. But I'll just spread them out here. And what I'll get is when I factorise this by taking out the greatest common factor, if you remember. And what I'd actually like you to do is do it yourself. So factorise this yourself before you see my solution, because then you'll actually see if you remember it. So just pause it and factorise it. Okay, so you should have factorised and taken out of this 12a x squared. So you should have taken 12a x squared out, and you should be left in your brackets with a plus 12 equaling 0. Remember, you can check that just by expanding back through and checking that you get the right answer. So by the null factor law, then 12a x squared equals 0, or a plus 12 equals 0. Now it would depend what we're looking for here, whether we're finding x or finding a. If we're finding a, then it would equal 0 because we do 0 divided by 12x squared. Over here you do a equals negative 12, and there would be your two answers. Okie dokie, let's do the next one. So the next one is very similar. It's again taking out the greatest common factor first, because we always take that out first. So we go 5x squared, take 125. Again, have a go at doing it. So got that equaling 0. And so what you should have got was 5 bracket x squared, take 25 is equal to 0. And then using the difference of two squares, we get 5 bracket x plus 5 times x take 5 equals 0. And so therefore, using the null factor law, x plus 5 equals 0, or x take 5 equals 0. And x therefore equals negative 5, or x equals 5. So this is greatest common factor, this is difference of two squares. Alright, let's keep going. The next one is also difference of two squares. I'm not going to go through that one. Again, that one would change depending on whether you're looking to solve for A or solve for B, because we've got both of those variables here. So that's again difference of two squares. Remember there, if you've forgotten how to factorise that, have a look back at your notes from earlier on with how to factorise that one. Okay, the next one, we've got 7x squared plus 42x plus 63 equals 0. Again, take out the greatest common factor. We get 7 bracket x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 0. And then hopefully you can see that this is actually a perfect square, because we've got a square, x squared, and 9 is also a square. It's 3 squared. And then that term in the middle is 2 times 3 times x. So it's actually a perfect square in the form of that. 7 bracket x plus 3 all squared equaling 0. So therefore we can get from that, we make that a bit smaller so we can fit everything in. We get from that x plus 3 is all squared is equal to 0. And of course, if you square root 0, you're just going to get 0. So x plus 3 equals 0, and x equals negative 3. Okay, part E. X squared, take 10x plus 25. Have a go at doing that one yourself. You should have seen again that we've got difference of two squares. We've got x squared is 1 squared, and we've got 25 as another squared. 25 is 5 squared, but 25 is also negative 5 squared. And I know to use negative 5 because I've got negative 10x here, so I need to get a negative in that. And so I just need to check that negative 5 times x times 2 is negative 10x, which it is, so it therefore matches my negative 10x term. So therefore I get x take 5 all squared is equal to 0. And so again, if you square root 0, you get 0. So x take 5 equals 0, and x equals 5. So you'll recall we talked about how you get two different solutions for x, which corresponds to two roots or two x-intercepts on a quadratic. When we've got perfect squares, we get what is called a repeated root. And you don't need to copy that down. We'll be talking about that later, but it's called a repeated root, and what it looks like with your quadratic is that your quadratic will actually touch the axis at that point rather than cutting the axis. So that's just a bit of interest for you, and how it correlates to the graph. If you're thinking, well, why don't I get two solutions, is because it's called a repeated or a double root. Okay, what is next? We're just going to go to f now. So f is x squared plus 14x take 32 equals 0. So let's go. Can we do greatest common factor? No. Can we do difference of two squares? No, because we don't have two terms there, do we? Can we do perfect squares? Well, 32 is not a perfect square, so no. So we have to do sum and product. Not a sum and product of roots, remember, but sum and product. So what are the factors? And I'm just going to write fact FA of negative 32. And then I'm going to do the sum of that, of those factors. So I'm abbreviating because this little bit of working out really doesn't matter. I know that it has to add up to 14. And so I'm not going to pick 8 and 4 because there's no combination of that which will give me 14. So 16 and 2, that's going to be more like it, isn't it? And 16 times negative 2 is going to give me negative 32. And the sum of that is actually 14. So you'll get good at just picking and seeing which factors work. If you can't see it yet, that's all right. Just do it by trial and error. But that means that those two factors times by each other are equal to 0. So by the null factor law, x plus 16 equals 0. Or x take 2 is equal to 0. So x equals negative 16. Or x equals 2. And there are two solutions for x in that case. So that's a 16. We have one more to go. And you probably can't see it anymore, but hopefully you can see what I'm writing. So we've got d here, which is 3x squared take 21x plus 36 is equal to 0. Greatest common factor, yes, we can take out a 3, so we get x squared take 7x plus 12 equals 0. Again, let's do our factor thing. We know we need to get, so if we just go factors and sum, we know we need to get positive 12, but we also know we need to get negative 7. So two negatives make a positive. Negative 3 take 4 is negative 7. So that means we go x bracket x take 3 times x take 4 equals 0. Now you might go, well, what happens to that 3? Well, 3 obviously can't equal 0, can it? 3 is not equal to 0. So we still know that those things multiply together. If that whole thing equals 0, then one of them must. It obviously can't be 3. So we don't have to worry about that. So we do x take 3 equals 0, or x take 4 equals 0. And so x equals 3, or x equals 4. So hopefully you can see now how it all fits together, how we factorise and then use the null factor law and then solve our equations. Good job, peoples.